And we are live. Well, Bill and I have a really packed guest list today, which keeps us happy. We've got friends old and new. So, I'm Ammon Johns. Bill, introduce yourself and let's go along the line.
Yeah, let's go left to right.
Wait, your left or my left?
Bill, you say hello
because you're actually the next one on the left.
A little bit.
You go first, Bill.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Slawski. I'm the Director of Search Marketing at Go Fish Digital, and I write about patents every once in a while at a place called SEO by the Sea.
Excellent. Carmen, say hello.
Hey everyone, I'm sorry you just get the still image of me today because it's just one of those days over here at Rojas Consulting. But I do own a group called Rojas Consulting where we do a lot of strategic marketing for entrepreneurs and early stage businesses.
I thought you were just really nervous about being in the Hangout and frozen stiff. That's all it was.
I wish that was all it was. It's just kind of it's a crazy day here, and there's just too much going on in the background and noise, and I may have to duck out a little early, so I figured it'd be easier and less disruptive.
Yeah, no problem at all. Well, one of those old friends is my friend John Moo from Cheeseland.
Hey, John.
Hi. Yeah, I'm John Mueller. I work at Google and I help do some search engine optimization, if you will.
Wonderful. And of course, very famously, you've been helping out in Google's webmaster forums for more years than you've worked at Google, you know. So, Kristin.
Hi, I'm Kristin Drysdale. And I'm here, and I'm just enjoying everybody's company, and we've just been giggling in the green room. Let's get this party started.
Kristoffer.
It's my turn? You skipped two people.
No.
I'm Kristoffer Howes, the CEO of Wheel Media, digital PR firm and friend of social media marketer. So, glad to see everybody here. Glad to hang out with John again, too.
Michelle.
I am Michelle Lowery, the co-founder of Passion Fruit Creative Group, a boutique web content copywriting agency. Unfortunately, much like Carmen, due to a little bit of a technical difficulty today, I'm not able to get my lower third up. However, in the background, you can see my half office, half gym here with my elliptical. So, just excited to meet a couple of you and talk to a couple of you for the first time. So.
Yeah, you get to work out while you work in.
I'm trying to do that, the standing desk, treadmill kind of thing, but it doesn't really work too well with the elliptical.
And one of those new friends, although we've known her by name for quite a while, Paula.
Thank you, Ammon. I'm Paula Allen. I'm Senior Technical Writer at Bruce Clay Inc., where we do a little bit of SEO. And I've been with the company since about 2008 and trying to keep up with all the crazy changes. Not in the company, of course, in the industry.
There's a difference. I thought the whole SEO industry was a crazy load of changes.
Basically, yes.
So, let's start with the general chit-chat and just what's everyone been up to for the last week? What's been going on? Bill, what's been going on in your life recently?
I've been digging into robots since Larry Page said in a Financial Times interview that 90% of everybody who works is going to put their feet up and watch the robots do the work for them.
Yeah.
Like the sound
I've got a feeling about that one.
I know what you think about that one.
Yeah. Digging
That's
into
a really interesting
opener, doesn't it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's one of those ones I commented on your post about it because it's one of those ones, in the future robots are going to do all the work. Right, great. but you're not going to be paid for them to do the work. You know, the top 1% can afford all the robots. They don't need to hire anybody anymore except a few technicians to keep it going. The rest of you, you know, 80% of the world's population are now surplus to requirements. Unless you can consume, you're going to be doing the jobs that are so menial they can't even be bothered to make a robot to do it.
You're doing robot repair.
Cleaning. Robot cleaning. You won't be skilled enough to do repairs because the robots will be building better robots by that stage. But you can clean the muck out the tracks. That's what you can do. What do you think about the robots, John?
I like robots. I think that's... I like the development where you can get like the small microprocessors to play with, to put them into, I don't know, remote control airplanes and have them fly around by themselves. I like the ability for like random people to take $100 and turn it into a robot, which I think in the past, if you wanted to make a normal kind of robot, that wouldn't have been possible. So it's going to be interesting to see what people make out of all of this.
Do you think technology's evolving faster than we are, though? I mean, let's face it. When you've got a $100 drone, what you've got is a lot of peeping toms with robots flying outside people's windows.
I don't know. I think it's something where, of course, there'll be a challenge to keep up, but you can compare it to kind of like when people were riding around on horses and the first cars came up. Of course, the people who were used to their horses were like, oh, you know, I don't want these metal boxes on the road. They're just going to kill my horses and cause all kinds of trouble. But in the end, it's worked out fairly well, I think. Yeah. So it's something where there's definitely going to have to be change to some extent. Probably a lot of rethinking of our assumptions, but it's, I don't know, it's coming. It's happening. It's not that you can hold people back from like playing around with these toys, because they're basically toys you can just turn into robots nowadays.
Mm-hmm. And there's still going to be people yelling and screaming out the window, "Hey, you kids, get away from my car!"
No, I'll have a robot to do that.
Well, the thing is, when you stop to think, everybody, if you ask somebody, you know, what's your vision of the future? I'm sure that they see drones and stuff flying around. I mean, look back to the Jetsons, the TV show The Jetsons. They had little drone things going around there, so it's something that people obviously see coming, but it's just it's just an instance of whether they're ready to accept it or not. I mean, surely they see it in the future, but everybody has to accept that one day it's going to happen.
I also think that there are a lot of assumptions that probably won't end up like that in the future. I mean, like you mentioned, like all those flying vehicles, when you look at the Jetsons, you're like, oh, in the year 2000, everyone's like flying around in the skies with an automatic flying car, and none of that has really happened. And I think for a lot of that to happen, there's just going to be a lot of base work that needs to be done to actually make it possible that people can do this without like flying into each other all the time.
Let's face it, the state of journalism these days, the whole thing was probably a misquote. He said, "I want everyone to have an Android device."
That's right.
But certainly the drones have great applications. Like you just said, journalism. I mean, you can get some pretty good views of a burning building or something that you wouldn't, you know, otherwise you'd have to put somebody's life in jeopardy, or, you know, or the, you know, something out at sea that, you know, it's pretty tough to get somebody there to get a good picture on or something. There's some really good applications for it. Some really interesting stuff has come up.
A nuclear reactor blows up in Japan, you can fly a bunch of drones in and check
assess
it out.
the damage, yeah, without sending people in harm's way. I mean, certainly it's great applications. Just, you know, it's like, I mean, I was going
to say, I think for war correspondents, I mean, with what's happening now in Syria, and it's become so incredibly dangerous to be a journalist in that region of the world, if you could have a drone that could go and capture images and whatnot, that would be way safer.
Yeah, I'm just always thinking of the fact that so much of the manufacturing industry started to automate years ago, and lots of cities here that used to be, you know, famous for manufacturing various things are almost ghost towns now. There's huge amounts of unemployment, and it's not because the machines are all automated. it's because that drove down the cost of labour to the point at which the robots were as cheap as they could be, because they're quite expensive. But it trained people to go for the lowest bidder, and we got more and more outsourcing to the Far East. So now nobody in this country is making it, but China's raking in the money.
I think actually that's, and getting back to what you said a minute ago, Ammon, about a society of peeping toms. I think that's one of the hallmarks of innovation, though, is looking at all the positive applications and all the possibilities, and maybe not taking the time to examine the possible negative ramifications and consequences of things like this, the legalities of it. Wow, we could have a drone that's, journalism and can take, photos of this fire. Or, for example, with everything that's going on in Ferguson, Missouri, they made the airspace over the city a no-fly zone because apparently police helicopters were being attacked. Somehow that trickled over to news helicopters as well. There was a big controversy over that, so I can definitely see how that would be a positive. But yeah, what else could? It's unfortunate, but for things like that, you have to think, well, what could somebody do with this that we might not maybe welcome? And I think that is one of the things that may be lacking with, to use Bill's example too, with cars and the horse-drawn carts. What is this going to do to traffic? And is there potential for injury? Or and it's necessary to, in addition, look at the positives and the possibilities and be excited about that. It's also necessary to take a step back and say, how could this be bad, and what can we do to prevent that or mitigate it?
Yeah, and it's going to create all kinds of issues and arguments. The first time a drone falls from the sky and kills somebody it lands on, is it the owner of the drone that's responsible, the manufacturer? Is it the person for being in the wrong place? There's going to be years of wrangling over exactly where the guidelines are going to be. Let's face it, the law lags behind a long way because it's usually based on case history. It takes years for those histories.
Precedents. Yes.
And I look at the fact that it's so far behind in terms of mobile, where the application that you download to do a perfectly legitimate thing may also be spying on you. And at the moment, the law doesn't really know what to do with that.
I've heard a month or so ago that a number of driver's licenses were given to self-driving cars. Like 24 of them went to Google, and 2 or 3 went to another company. It's like, okay, so they're not technically drivers; they're driving themselves, these cars. But actually having some type of legal paperwork that goes with them that allows them to be driven is probably a step in the right direction. So who covers the car insurance? Don't know yet.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting to watch it go out. But Mark Faraski brings up another great point, and he says, does anyone remember Star Trek, where the economy wasn't based on money? All of these things that come along that increase productivity, it doesn't make life better for us. It resets the bar on average. We were told that these computers were going to be great labour-saving devices, and here we are working longer hours than ever. And it's expected that you have one that you can keep up. And 10% of all of the workforce in developed nations now work in IT support, keeping the machines going. So it's certainly an interesting point.
Is there an ethics committee already formed for this? I mean, that just seems like a logical thing to me, that we should need to have an ethics committee formed.
We'll need a lot of them. I can imagine that the government has put together a body of its best friends to look into this and get paid meantime, but I don't expect it to actually produce very many results at the moment. I think it will be interesting when the UN forms a committee on it, with lots of countries all inputting. That's the only way it will really take off, don't you think, John?
find the unmute button. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really say much about like committees and things like that, but I think it's also important to keep in mind that these kind of things are kind of cutting edge technology at the moment, and that's similar to how the internet was when we started. So it's something where if you think back and you think about what would it be like if we took all the websites out there and we scraped them all and we turned them into this thing where you could enter some text and they would show up in the search results. That's something where, depending on how you look at that, you think, oh my God, that's a crazy idea. Nobody would ever realistically do that. I mean, like everyone would be upset. But that turned into like tons of opportunities and made it possible to kind of build this whole internet economy and the whole, I guess, the whole ecosystem that we're working in now. So I think it's important on the one hand to kind of be critical about all of these new things as they come up, but on the other hand, not try to unnaturally hold back progress, because it's going to happen if we're taking part of it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. It does make there will be new generations of privacy devices. Basically a short-range EMP that if there is a drone near your house, that's it gone.
I don't know. I mean, maybe there'll be something like the robot's text. It's like, don't crawl over my apartment. I don't know. I don't know what it'll be. But I'm sure that these kind of things, as this technology gets developed and kind of gets used more widely, there'll be changes happening there as well. It's not like always going to be wild and crazy. Everyone just does whatever they want. But it's important, I think, to kind of be open towards those kind of changes and say, okay, there are things happening that I might not agree with at the moment, but maybe it's heading into a direction that actually does a lot of good in the end.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that that Mark brought up Star Trek, because first of all, I'm a big Star Trek fan, but I think going back to his comment, more than looking at productivity, I think it requires looking at goals, because the reason why the Star Trek universe economy, I'm gonna get all nerdy on you guys. The reason why it's not based on money is it's based on bettering themselves as human beings and what they can all contribute to that. So it requires an examination of goals. If we create this thing, what is it going to be? And right now, the way that our society is, right now, the first things that people start looking at are, how can we make money with this? How is this going to improve our revenue? How is this going to, what can we sell from it? What can we make from it? That is still very much the most common mindset, and until we can get past that and start looking at the more positive ways that things can be used or created for better purposes, it's going to take a long time before we get there, I think.
I missed something in Star Trek. At some point, they did have money when they had like the Ferengi. They were.
Oh well, that's a different society, though. That's the Federation on Earth did not have. Totally getting nerdy, you guys. I'm sorry, but the Earth did not use currency anymore, and other worlds in the Federation did not. But some of them still did. Yes, the Ferengi were very, very much money motivated. But you'll notice that in like for example on DS9. The Ferengi were kind of looked down upon. They were seen, and they made their characters. They were very greedy. They were sneaky. Anything they could do to make a buck, it was. And I think actually it wasn't a buck. It was latinum. So yes, all flying the Star Trek nerd flag all the way now. But
were they the SEOs of their time?
Oh no.
Sorry.
Ferengi's SEOs. But yeah, I mean there was a society that was very still monetarily motivated, but like I said, they were portrayed very negatively. So, yeah. And that's the Star Trek for the day. So
Kristin's resorted to putting messages in the event chat to get through. She wants to know the name of the bird.
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. He was having a fit over there, and he was going to be loud if I didn't let him come over and visit me for a little bit. His name is Pixie. He's a cockatiel. He's very ornery and stubborn. And if I didn't let him come over and sit with me for a little bit, he was going to be over there screeching, and you wouldn't be able to hear me. So.
Very
But it's so sweet. He's just like content to be there.
Yes, yeah, he's very affectionate. He's a very sweet bird. Except my microphone kind of freaks him out. It's okay.
So, Carmen, what have you been doing this week?
You know, I'm taking a little break from my HOA for a while, and partly because I felt like I had like a mountain of all of this evergreen content, so to speak, that was literally rotting because I just couldn't get to it. So I just had to, you know, step back for a little bit, and really just start putting some of that stuff out before, you know, all of my hard work just kind of sits there and does nothing and no longer becomes relevant. So, you know, refreshing some things on the website, putting out different blogs, finishing up different ideas, you know, redid the YouTube page. I mean, just all of that kind of stuff that I've been needing to do.
Yeah. See, it's lack of robots. That's what it is.
Yeah, you know, if I could have got a robot to redo the banner on my YouTube page, I so would have. That was like the most complicated thing I've ever seen. Sorry, John. I know that's part of the Google thing, but I was pulling my hair out for a couple of hours, and I think of myself as being fairly savvy.
And there we have it. The real reason she hasn't got the camera on this week, she's pulled out big chunks of hair.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. But yeah, that's what I've been up to this week, is really just trying to get caught up on a lot of the things that I need to do that move the business forward and keep customers coming in and all of that good stuff. So it's getting towards the holiday season, so I think I'll probably get back to my HOA in the new year.
So that's a good, almost useful point that we can kind of bring up. How often do we all tend to do that step back and refresh our content, look at what's performing, what needs tweaking, and what needs dropping? You know, where do we go on that? For me, it's kind of a 3-month thing. Every quarter, I'll go through, look at the stuff that just isn't bringing in anything, isn't doing anything for me, weed it out of the site, because I don't want the site becoming endless. Something I do with all the clients is, you know, I've seen so many corporate sites where, you know, they've been told, oh, you should be blogging, and oh, you should have a news feed, and so you get a site with not that many inbound links and 30,000 pages, and of course the crawl budget is nowhere near enough to spider all of that. So where do we tend to go on that?
Well, if you have a page, Ammon, that has a lot of traffic, you're not going to get rid of that one, right? So what do you use as your criteria?
If it's got a lot of citations, even if it's not getting traffic, I will keep it. If it's getting a lot of traffic, I'll keep it. If it's getting not much traffic but meaningful traffic, I'm getting conversions from it, I'll keep it. But there's a hell of a lot of stuff out there that really isn't doing very much, or you've got 2 or 3 pages that are each doing a little, and it is possible to combine them into one thing that will do all of that and take up only 1/3 of the core budget of the 3. So that's where I go on.
That's interesting. Bruce Clay Inc., we have so many blog posts over years and years. And we have one, it's like our classic blog post. You guys see me? Because I'm just seeing other people on the screen. But anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. We have one, believe it or not, it was written in 2007 on how to properly implement a 301 redirect. And it is our top traffic driver every month. We don't understand why. It's crazy. We've made sure it's still up to date, but other than that, we just leave that alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Another thing,
The benefit of writing evergreen content.
Yes.
see, what we do too is we watch the social signals that are in it. We watch the number of shares on the Google Plus. We watch the retweets, because like you can monitor the number of incoming links, and that's one aspect to watch in terms of, you know, the link traffic or the traffic that you're getting to the website. But on like Google Plus in the comments, you could be getting a lot of traction, a lot of engagement on that post, and that's not going to show up in the number of links that you're getting to your website. So a lot of that content too, you've got to look through your major social networks, your Facebook, your Twitter, even YouTube. Some of those videos, the comments that you're getting on your Google Plus page is going to be a good indication of whether that content's strong or not. Mm-hmm. As a side note.
Good one.
Yeah. Michelle, do you have to do any content weeding? Because I know you write a lot and for lots of different clients. How does that go?
Actually, and we've talked about this before, Ammon, we often find ourselves in the situation of the college children not having shoes. We've let our blog slide a little bit lately because we have had so much client work, and that becomes the focus very much. So, we did kind of a reevaluation in July when we hit our 1-year anniversary. Yay! And added some things to our site, redid nearly every page of our website, and then we've kind of left it alone since then, honestly. But this is one of the things that particularly content developers and content creators will talk about, that it's a feast or famine. A part of the industry, and we have been stuck in the feast mode for a little while now. Not that I'm complaining at all, but like I said, that becomes very much the focus, making sure that we're serving our clients and giving them the best quality of work that we can. So we've been working with some really fantastic people, though, helping with this is the interesting part, though, and I think that this may have to do with it definitely has to do with Panda, and especially the most recent update with that. People have been redesigning their websites and completely revamping their content. And that's we have one client that we're helping do that right now. We just talked to another potentially new client today who wants to do the same thing. So I love seeing that. I love seeing that people are really starting to look and say, okay, you know what? It's not enough to just tweak things a little bit, or maybe remove a few keywords from a page or something. No, we really need to revamp and rewrite and make sure that it's written both for SEO factors and for the audience. I think people are finally starting to walk the walk, or walk the talk, or talk the walk, or whatever whatever goes along with that. Instead of just saying, it needs to be good because of Panda. Yes, it does, and they're actually starting to take action that way now. So I really like seeing that, because we've been saying that for a long time. Do it right the first time. Do it right the first time. Make sure that your content is quality. And so many, that's a very broad and general term. A lot of things go into quality, and some of it is subjective, some of it's not. But if you do everything you can to make sure that your content is the best it can be from the beginning, you're going to be better able to write out those algorithm changes, instead of constantly trying to find the shortcut that works for a little while, and when it changes, change your content and change what you're doing again, and you get stuck in a never-ending cycle that way. So I really enjoyed seeing that some people have finally said, you know what? Okay, yes, it's absolutely. We need to go and fix things and make them much better than they were before, and I'm grateful that they come to us and ask us to help them do that.
My father had a saying, Michelle. It takes less time to do it right the first time than it does to come back and do it again.
Except when it works the other way around.
Always the contrarian, Bill.
Oh, never. No, me.
No, not you.
I put out a blog today about with all the focus on content, that we've sometimes lost the idea of conversion. That we focus on having great content, and I've had clients and people that we've worked with that do all of the content things that we tell them to do, and then they get a like or a share, or maybe they're watching the wrong conversion. You know what I mean? It's the mini conversions, and then they lose track of that bigger purpose and the bigger conversion. And you can have, all of the likes and shares and comments and all of that fun stuff that you want on a particular piece of content, but if it doesn't convert, particularly for entrepreneurs and early stage businesses, into some form of a sale or a business objective, then it's all but useless. You know what I mean? And so we've been doing spending a lot of time working with our early stage group to get them to understand that at this point, your biggest thing is to meet your business objectives, whatever they are. And if it's not aiding you in that process, it's not worthwhile.
That's very true. However, some of those goals, they may be more long term, and whatever the goal is, whatever that whatever the conversion is that you're looking for, whether it's a sale, a sign up, whatever, it might not happen immediately. What Paula was just saying a few minutes ago, they have a post from 2007 that is still their biggest performer. They didn't see that in 2007 when they wrote it and put the post up. They weren't like, okay, 7 years from now, this is going to be, our biggest traffic draw. So we need to make sure that it stays updated. No, they had no idea. They wrote a post, and sometimes you don't know. That's why I'm saying, you just make sure that it's as good as it can be, and
sure,
keep an eye on those metrics. Keep an eye on that traffic, and traffic, and update it as you can. So it's I understand what you're saying, Carmen. I completely agree with you. Some goals will be more short-term than others. I just get wary of clients. Well, we put this up a week ago, and it's only gotten 10 views. What's going on? Maybe we need to take it down. No, wait, stop. Calm down.
Well, and I think and that's why, like the blog I wrote, we were talking about mini conversions and your kind of macro conversion. And the mini things being the likes, the shares, the comments, all of that kind of stuff. And I would assume for Bruce Clay that they did have some of those initial signals that this was a good piece. You know what I mean? And that this was something to hold on to.
So that was a good indicator right there. The author was Lisa Barone. I said the author was Lisa Barone, so that was a good indicator right there.
Hard to go wrong with that. But yeah, I mean, watching for those initial mini conversions that can signal you that this is something to do, but you have to keep focus and not lose sight of what the end goal is.
Yeah, and be careful with metrics like likes, because sometimes you find the CEO went home at the weekend and told all of his family to click on it, and you've just thrown off all our metrics. You've just thrown it off.
Yeah. There's also a lot of branding that it's just under the surface. You may not be able to prove that it's doing anything for you, but don't remove it. I think almost a lot of companies, Google Plus activity falls into that category, where you're building a community, you're building a brand, you're putting a face to your, to who you are. And can I show metrics? Well, sometimes, we can show conversions coming from Google Plus, but you can't always. And so it takes an enlightened marketing manager to say that there's still value in that, even though I can't put numbers to it.
Sometimes what you're creating is goodwill, and that's intangible. You really can't see it, but people feel it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of those things. I mean, there was on an old site that I don't have anymore. I had an article that for 10 years was driving great traffic, and introducing people to my slightly contrarian views sometimes. I know you won't believe it, but sometimes I disagree with people.
What?
Contrarian. Yeah.
And it was just written right in the first place. I had to adjust almost nothing on it. And even going back, there were forum threads from Creator Site, such as the one on linking strategies. I would change it today if I was writing it, just to have a bit more emphasis on what isn't a reciprocal link scheme, but otherwise everything on it I absolutely stand by. It just needs a few more provisos now, that's all.
Bill Sebald wrote a post recently for the ISOOSI blog that I love. It's fantastic. It's about mission marketing. And Bill, what you just said a minute ago about creating goodwill, that's actually something, and I commented on that post to this effect too, that's something that I've tried to get across to clients before as well. It doesn't matter if your keyword isn't, you know, in 40-point font and, you know, you're mentioning what you do and your logo is everywhere. If you're creating something, we say this all the time, and it's getting to the point where we've said it so much that it's starting to lose its meaning, but if you really think about it, think about the words, if you're creating something of value and you're creating something that people can use and that they like or that gives them something, it's not necessarily about your metrics. It's not necessarily about your likes or even your traffic, and you may not see the result of it for some time. It might take a little while, but it's still just as worthwhile as creating those things that are meant to elicit more immediate response.
I had a bit of a conundrum a couple years ago. I was getting buried with comments. And a lot of the blog posts I write tend to be evergreen. The thing I've written about really hasn't changed much, which fortunately every once in a while somebody will take on something I've written about and write it in a slightly different way and give me credit for it, and it'll resurface something that I wrote about 5 years ago or so, and I've got closed comments, so I don't know whether or not that's always happened. But I just couldn't stand being buried by comments. There were way too many of them. So, you know, you sort of have to balance things like that.
We've got a question there from Leela. He says that the corporations he's worked for all tended to monetize goodwill, even in their annual reports. Has that changed? Is that different today? I know that for Kristin and I, goodwill projects are, you know, something we're definitely interested in. I know Bill's supported a lot over the years, but Kristin and I are both involved with Lend One Hand, who very much deserve a shout out. And it's a very new project, but you know, that kind of thing excites me, and I think it's something, you know, really important.
Certainly, I consider it like my social media tithing. I feel like for everything that we put out there, we've got to do something good. That's just how I feel. I would be remiss if I didn't think about the time that I have to give back.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, I mean, when I was in business school, I mean, they taught you to put goodwill as a line item on your financial reports and balance statements and all of that fun stuff. I mean, it's I would say less, you know, concrete of a concept to put on some kind of, you know, attach a dollar amount to, but it is there, and it does have to be accounted for and somehow made material in business finance.
Well, I'll tell you, there's actually a marketing company, and there's a few of them around, but there's one marketing company that we work closely with, and the name of the company is Lincoln Martin. And what they are is they're a marketing company, but what they do with all of their profits is they donate all of that to not necessarily charities. For example, this marketing company has gone to India and built schools. They've provided with school uniforms. They've built infrastructure in villages in Africa. But their whole premise is that they do good. I mean, they go out, they do marketing services. Their prices are very competitive, but they use their profits. Simply, all of it goes to, you know, build some of these pretty incredible projects.
It's something going way back to the days of Creator Site, and before that, I've always tried to have 2 charity projects on the go at any time. And there's been times when, you know, I might support a particular forum and put a lot of time in there, and that will count as one of those, because I'm not doing it to promote myself. I'm not doing it to get business from it. I'm just doing it to kind of help others up to lend a hand out. But that's always been one of the things that I've tried to do, and I love a lot of the religions and faiths that have this as an ethos. I know the Muslim faith isn't necessarily everybody's favourite these days, but if you actually study it, the pillars of Islam is such a wonderful thing that I think every religion should have something like that in there, and charity is absolutely a part of that. Is it does everyone have some time that they put aside for charity projects for good causes?
Well, Wheel Media is doing a big project at the end of this year. Give you a little background on it. We're donating 1 ton of food to the food bank. It's going to be called the 1 ton favorite. And what you're going to do is you're going to vote on your favorite dish for your favorite holiday dish, whether it be mashed potatoes, corn, whatever it is. And for 30 days, we're going to let everybody vote. And at the end of that time, we're going to donate 1 ton of whatever that favorite is. And I can't tell you where it's going yet because we haven't launched it yet. But that's what we're doing this year. Could you imagine what a ton of turkeys looks like?
I'm just thinking,
Wait, now we're talking about the SEO industry again.
Just don't drop them from a plane like that episode of WKR from Cincinnati.
I swear I thought they could fly.
1 ton of food.
But that'll be a lot of fun. It'll be interesting to see what people's favorites are.
Yeah. We haven't done anything like that from with passion fruit just yet. Individually, I have in the past. Once I learned more about digital marketing and SEO and realized what a specialized skill set it is, I put that together with how horrible some nonprofit websites are, because of the fact that they're nonprofits, they don't have the money to spend on a developer or someone to manage their website. So I have gone out and offered to help. Mostly when I've done it the past couple times, it's been with animal shelters because that's a cause close to my heart. And help them, improve their content and reorganize their websites for them. Help them with their donation page and making sure that their PayPal button worked. Every little thing that I could do to help them improve their presence and get a little bit more reaction and more donations and more, participation from the community. I've done that as much as I could. Here in San Antonio, I put there's a really great organization in San Antonio called Each One Teach One, and they promote and provide lessons for adult literacy, and their website, oh my goodness, it was a mess. And so I had offered to help them, and then what I ended up doing though was put them in touch with the owner of a web development company I know here in town, and they're getting ready to. They just moved into a repurposed firehouse that they're renovating to be their classroom space. So, now is the perfect time for them to get their website up and running really well too. So I put them in touch with each other. So when they come out with their new classroom and their new facility, they're also going to come out with a brand new website and really, step things up hopefully and start helping a lot more people and getting a lot more people involved, a lot more volunteers.
Yeah. If they keep the fire pole, they're going to have so many people wanting to go.
They could just charge for that, right? I'd pay $5 to go down the fire pole.
We did last year. One of the most fun Goodwill things I've ever done. I taught a class. It was a 8-week-long program for kids, teaching them how to be entrepreneurs, teaching entrepreneurial concepts. There's this group of kids, and they came up with this idea that was just, at the top, I was like, oh my gosh, this is never going to work. And they refined it, they kind of built their little plan around it, and at the very end, they got to pitch to a VC. Their whole idea said like a little mini Shark Tank moment, but they got the chance to kind of do like a mock crowdfund for it so that people got to kind of vote through dollars as to whether or not they liked the idea or not. And then we donated everything that was donated through the crowdfund to a child abuse prevention program in the area. So it was really, really a lot of fun, and that was a blast.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be on a huge scale. I mean, working with Fresh Egg one year, the local church hall needed repainting, and we went round there on a weekend and painted it. You know, that kind of charity project is still just as valuable, something to the community.
Along those lines, I don't know how many of you noticed at PubCon, one of the keynotes was given by Jason Calacanis, the angel investor. And if you were given like a platform at a major convention like PubCon, what would you choose to talk about? And I was so inspired that he used it not really to talk about marketing, but he talked about startups that are changing the world. Saving the world is what he called it. Yeah. And he listed in 6 different categories. We've got a live blog on our site of just how startups are helping solve cancer, climate change, energy problems, hunger, jobs. He talked about, as an example, Uber, or Uber, I never know how to pronounce that. They're creating jobs in all over the world, right? Just anybody with a car can have a job.
Yeah.
And connecting people that way. And just all of these different startups and what they're making a difference in the world doing.
At the end of the day, I mean, that's what all business should be. That's what every entrepreneur should be trying to do, is to create an employer for the community, a rallying point for the community that puts money into the pockets of the community and spreads it around that community, because those workers are able to spend more on local products and local goods and local houses, and you know, all of these things are supposed to lift up an economy. And
right.
It's what changed my mind from, you know, the perception that a young man has of, you know, business, that's fat cats and people trying to look after themselves, to understanding, well, actually, no, these are the people that pay the most taxes, that put money into lots of people's pockets who are also paying taxes, that those people are then supporting their local economy and supporting their families, and, you know, ideally, that's what we're all doing.
I love it. That's true.
Yeah.
And you know, like Michelle was saying, and Carmen too, I mean, as marketers, I think we have probably more opportunity than others to lend a hand. I mean, a few hours of work. Bruce always likes to tell the story that he helped his sister and brother-in-law who had a business selling fireworks online. He spent like 3 hours SEOing their website, and now they make, I don't know, hands over fist, way more than they ever did because he just helped them. And we can do that as marketers.
Yes. Yeah, going along with what Carmen was saying as well, you reminded me, I misspoke when I said PFCG hasn't done anything. I actually volunteered at San Antonio Youth Code Jam recently, which was getting kids interested in coding. Very few schools have coding classes. I actually learned a really important, really interesting statistic, and I wish I could quote the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I'd have to look it up. But it was something like, in 10 years, there are going to be, you know, 400,000 code jobs and only maybe 10 or 20,000 people able to fill them. So this event, this annual event, you know, brings kids in. They teach them about coding. I worked at the WordPress station, getting them interested in blogging and using WordPress and teaching them how to do that. And it was so great to see them excited about, you know, publishing something and learning, getting to actually learn hands-on with computers. We're also going to be sponsoring, San Antonio is going to be having its first WordCamp. And, you know, again, that's going to be helping people learn about WordPress and how it can help their business and what they can do with it. So definitely, like Paula said, you know, we are in a very unique position to share this knowledge and this experience with people and how it can help them, not necessarily just charity-wise, but how it can help them help themselves. If you can help a kid learn how to code, you can help them get a job later on eventually. If you can help someone learn how WordPress, you know, how it's easy to use or why it's a powerful platform and it helps their business, you know, it's going to be very beneficial to them. So I love doing stuff like that.
My 8-year-old son loves to code. He's learning how to code, and he has this whole coding book that he's using, and he would rather do that than actually play the video game at this point.
Wow.
And it's actually, we've been looking for programs, to try and find that can help him, that can actually like teach it. You know what I mean? Like I don't code. That's kind of the limit of my website abilities. That's why I hire somebody to do that. But so I can't teach him how to do it. So we bought him some books and things like that. But he did the Khan Academy stuff. But I would, a lot of the programs and camps and stuff seem to be for kids that are older than him. But at this point, while those language centers of the brain are still developing and all of that good stuff, yes. I would love for him to really get into it and have somebody in a curriculum style thing show him how to do it.
Yeah.
The woman who started San Antonio Youth Code Jam, that is exactly the reason why she started it, because her son was so interested in coding and wanted to learn coding, and she and her husband were we don't know how to code. We can't. This isn't like we can help you with your math homework or something. They had no idea what to do for him or how to help him with it. So they started this event, and it's grown every year. It gets bigger and bigger, and it was held this year at Rackspace, who is a huge sponsor of it. So it's definitely a great cause to get involved with if you have the opportunity, something like that.
There was a thing I loved many years ago. It was Rand first posted me the link to it, but there was a guy who set up a computer in a village in India, and where the street kids were basically, and he set it up like a hole in the wall cash machine, so it couldn't be just stolen and taken away, but it could be completely interacted with. And at first the kids kind of approached it nervously. He said, but within 2 weeks they were coding, and they weren't playing games. They were downloading things to learn from. They were using the internet's library, and it really does. Something like that really builds up my faith in humanity again. That they didn't waste their time with the idle stuff. The wasting time on a computer does seem to be a first world problem. If you put this in the hands of the needy, they seem to reach out for education first, and I love that.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I was nervous about being in an auditorium with about 400 kids because I thought that was just going to be a madhouse. But those kids were so awesome. They were so interested, and just they were there to learn, and they asked questions, and they were they were following the exercises and trying to do these things. Yeah, and it wasn't they did have a couple of gaming stations. They had something about Angry Birds and something about Minecraft, of course, and those were the big attractions. But it was so wonderful to see all these little kids so interested and wanting to learn, and really asking good questions, and not like you said, wasting that time and with just playing around, or they were making good use of it. It was great.
Yeah. Just for the audience, we have been taking the mickey out of poor John mercilessly, because Google does seem to be picking on him to prove that it isn't playing favourites. It seems to be picking on him particularly today.
You have to laugh at the irony.
Not a Google Crime book. So.
Hey, Ammon, I got something I'd like everyone's feedback on. I've been pondering it for the last day. But did anybody see where Leo Burnett signed the agreement with Huffington Post? Where they're now Huffington Post will create content for Leo Burnett, and they're going to share it through all the AOL sites. Pretty interesting partnership in terms of PR and content marketing. Anybody hear about that?
I mean, there's two things that occur to me there. I mean, one, it's AOL. They could have traffic wardens writing content, and it's still going to make them more popular than they are right now.
What's a traffic warden?
AOL kind of were traffic wardens of the internet for a long, long time, weren't they? But yeah, it would be more interesting if it was, you know, a company that was already doing well rather than a company that probably just wanted to be in the news for almost anything right now. But it's a very interesting move. I think it is that AOL seen, well, the kids, they're down with this HuffPo, aren't they? Let's bring some of that in.
Well, you can imagine the power in terms of the you know, the credibility. It's certainly a step up. I mean, this way here, Leo Burnett doesn't necessarily have to spend all that time creating its own content and hiring, you know, authors and graphic designers and such. It's kind of a one-stop where they just simply went to the newspaper and said, okay, well, you know, here, we want news every day.
You know
it's
what?
Just an interesting partnership.
Yeah.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? When I first heard that McDonald's was doing this whole, you know, social media push, and I said, you know, I don't care what they tweet about, I'm not going to eat one of their hamburgers. And it's kind of like that. You know, I don't care what they tweet about, I'm not going to go get an AOL subscription. I mean, it's just.
No, but I think what they're using is to promote whatever clients Leo Burnett has, is what it is. I mean, it's just. It's a good outlet for them.
William says AOL rocks. I think he means AOL was made with rocks.
Well, I mean, regardless. I mean, it says they're going to release on all AOL sites, but just by the fact of having them release content on Huffington Post is going to help their campaigns in itself.
Yeah, I think
maybe.
I think it's a bigger bonus for Huffington Post than it is for Leo, to be honest. Is there anybody that disagrees with that? That it's better news for them than for him?
But will the move increase traffic for Leo Burnett's sites? I believe it will, because they'll probably have better content writers. They'll have better exposure, better promotion. Not that Leo Burnett doesn't know what they're doing, but
yeah, I do think it'd help. But then again, you know, for less money, he could have hired 4 aspiring writers and given somebody a break that needed it. And
Jesus, I think they probably have 50 right now they just laid off.
Yeah, exactly. But they gave them so many rules, they couldn't do anything. And it's difficult. It's one thing, I'm going to bring Paula into this, because it's one thing I love about Bruce Clay is that from the time of Lisa, he has given his bloggers real creative freedom to be out there and talk without worrying about what most companies do. What if this person leaves? I can't let them build up their reputation. And Bruce never seems to worry about that.
He really doesn't. He might schmooze us a little bit if we say we want to leave. He certainly tried to influence Lisa to stay, you know, on the writing team. But she had her sites, you know, she went from here. And she really launched her own career from the platform of the Bruce Clay blog. She wrote literally thousands of blog posts for us over the period of time that she initiated our blog. And they're fabulous. And so, yeah, I think I would have trouble trimming some of those, Ammon, to come back to your first point about trimming away content. But, yeah, he encourages us to have creative freedom. He not only does that, he expects us to use our own name, our own face, like this. I'm on a Hangout representing the company, but he trusts the people that he hires enough to let us do that as ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, and it is interesting, isn't it, that these companies that still want the corporate voice through their blog, it is a bit like, you know, if their staff went on Hangouts, what are they going to do? Wear a paper mask of the CEO's face? And think that's not going to stand up. That's what you're doing when you're writing with the corporate voice instead of a personal one, I sometimes think.
Yeah, we actually have just a few guiding principles for the blog, and one of them, John Mueller will love this, is don't kick the gorilla. We're not allowed to attack Google directly.
You know what? I think John is one of the first to love constructive criticism. I know Matt does. You know, that's one of the things I still like about Google is they do try to be accountable. It's difficult because there's so many different things that different people are working on, and sometimes it's a maze even within the company for everyone to know what's going on, especially when you've got 2 or 3 people working on alternate solutions for the same sort of thing. But generally, feedback is really welcomed, isn't it, John? Even negative.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's something that I find really important, especially when you're working on the web. I mean, the web is so large, you can't possibly cover all of that information and see where things are working well, where things aren't working well, and do that by yourself. You basically have to rely on all of these anecdotes that get forwarded to you, where people are saying, "Oh, this is working great," or "This is working terribly. Why did my site disappear?" or "What should I be doing differently?" And all of this information we do take back to the engineers to make sure that we're trying to improve things as well. So I think that's really important. Kind of getting back to the content question, we have the same problem as well on our side. It's not so much, I'd say, from a crawl point of view, but just generally making sure that the content we have out there remains relevant. And that means that essentially everything you write that goes into the documentation has to be maintained. It has to be updated when the UI changes in the Help Center or where the documentation is, and all of that is something that we kind of have to keep up with as well. So that's always a tricky situation when you're looking at just page views and engagement, and you're saying, well, nobody's actually reading this Help Center article on this meta tag anymore. Should we just delete it? It's a hard decision sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine it is. We had a comment a moment ago from William Rock praising Bruce Clay, and I know a lot of people did start there. What I particularly noticed is this is the first time William Rock has admitted that he is certified.
Well, maybe the first time you've read it, but he often claims. Oh, never mind. You were joking.
Sorry, I can never resist one like that. Okay, we are at the hour, so I hate to end this, but we really do kind of need to roll this up. Mm-hmm. I've got to say what an absolute joy it was to spend some time with each and every one of you today, and the audience has given us some fantastic feedback as well. I'll certainly be jumping in there later. But for me, for this week, that's goodbye. Bill?
Hi, goodbye from me to Bill.
John?
Yo.
Goodbye.
Kristin?
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Kristin, Kristoffer?
See you later. Thanks a lot.
And Paula?
It's been such a pleasure. Thanks, Ammon.